The purpose of this short tutorial is to give you an understanding of button feedback to provide status information to the end user. We'll cover three main points: the definitions of the various types of feedback, the purpose of button feedback within a Netlink system, and a few different methods of managing button feedback along with the pros and cons of each one. The purpose of feedback is to send information to the end user about the status of the AMX system. This status information can be as simple as turning on the LED for a keypad button to indicate the system power is on, or it could be in the form of a display-only bar graph which indicates the current light level in a room. However, most of the time we use feedback to light up a button on a touch panel to indicate to the user the status of whatever property that button represents. For example, if it's the screen down button for your projection screen, that button would be on, lit up, when the screen is down. Let's move on to describing the three primary types of feedback that can be implemented within an AMX system. The first type of feedback is momentary feedback provided by the touch panel. This is also referred to as fake feedback. There are two primary advantages to using this type of feedback. One is that it's the simplest way to let the user know something happened. And second, because there is no interaction with the Netlink's master. This type of feedback does not generate any traffic across the network that connects the touch panel to the master. Unfortunately, the big disadvantage of fake feedback is there is no confirmation that the command was actually sent to the third-party device, or even that the master received the button event from the touch panel. The reason it's called fake feedback is that the user will see the button light up even if the panel is disconnected from the master. This, of course, could be very misleading since the end user will assume the command was sent to the device even if the panel is offline. The second type of feedback is referred to as pseudo feedback. Pseudo feedback means that the button state is managed by the Netlink's code. The advantage of this type of feedback over fake feedback is that at least the end user knows the button event was received by the master. The disadvantage is that this type of feedback does not indicate the true status of the third-party device. Pseudo feedback is typically used with IR-controlled devices, since there's no way to get true status information back from those devices due to the fact that IR control is a one-way communication. Lastly, we have true feedback. It's called true feedback because it indicates to the user the true status of the third-party device. The only disadvantage of true feedback is that it might not be an option for all devices. The third-party device must have some mechanism of communicating its status back to the Netlink's master or controller. Therefore, these devices typically use either serial or IP communication protocols. One exception to this is what we call native Netlink's devices. These are actual hardware components of the AMX products, and in fact, the mechanism within an AMX device which provides this true feedback is called the feedback channel. We'll actually be using this method to provide user feedback for the relays in your previous exercise. You can think of the feedback channel as an embedded property of AMX devices, which is always updated and synchronized with the Netlink's master it's attached to. Some examples of these devices are the ports built into the controller, like IR, relay, and digital I/O ports. An easy way to manage button feedback in Netlink's code is to trigger the feedback inside the event where the status update from the controlled device actually happens. One example of this would be if the device sends you a string inside a data event. You can simply update the button state based on the string data returned from the device. A real-world example of this would be if you have a serial-controlled projector that sends you a status message when it changes from off to warming, to on, to cooling. You could create a 4-state button that changes colors based on the projector status. The feedback for that button would be handled within the string handler of the data event for that projector. We'll discuss strings in a much later tutorial. So let's take a look at two different types of feedback in our code.